I think gold and silver will move up independently of these geopolitical conflicts. Certainly, there's always that added reason to own gold in the face of geopolitical conflict. But if you look throughout the years, very often when a war breaks out, they hit the price of gold. That the commercial banks will short the price to delink the rationale people would have for fleeing currency and moving into commodities. It's been doing that forever and ever and ever. So I don't look at that as being as big of a driver as much as the inflation, the lowered interest rates, the weaker dollar, the tariffs. These are all highly inflationary, and inflation is not going anywhere. In fact, it will be reignited under the Trump administration in many ways. So they may use that as an excuse to cover more shorts, to knock the price down. Ultimately, I don't think it has much bearing at all, to be honest with you.
In today's episode, Andy Schectman discusses the shifting dynamics of global finance, focusing on the BRICS nations' move toward de-dollarization and its implications for gold and silver. As these countries explore alternatives to the US dollar, Andy explains how this realignment could significantly boost demand for precious metals, cementing gold's role as a pillar of monetary stability. Andy also examines the rise of Bitcoin, which has gained traction as digital gold among younger investors. While acknowledging Bitcoin's growing appeal, he emphasizes the enduring value of physical gold and silver, which have stood the test of time as tangible, crisis-resistant assets. Gold and silver have staged a strong recovery from the sell-off sparked by optimism during Trump's presidency. With central banks stockpiling gold and rising inflation concerns, these metals are once again proving their importance in protecting wealth during economic uncertainty. Now, we'll show you more clips, but first, smash the subscribe button and check the pinned comment, especially if you're a stacker. As with NordVPN, you can ensure your data is never exposed, letting you browse investing information securely. Enjoy the episode.
To a degree, yeah, it's certainly detracting from gold's appeal. I find it interesting that all you hear is crypto. And at the same time, you find that the central banks are accumulating hard assets, not so much in the way of crypto. It's also interesting to note that if you look at the main trading pair on majority of the platforms like Kraken and Coinbase, it's USDT Tether with Bitcoin. And if you look at USDT and USDC, these dollar-based stable coins, the majority of their holdings are in US treasuries. And so it's interesting. It's as if, on one hand, people are trying to reject the legacy system, the old-time system, and go into crypto. And at the same time, in many respects, they're actually supporting and extending the life of the bond market as much of the world is shedding our treasuries. It's the backing of many of these stable coins, USDC and USDT in particular, that is actually extending the life of the crypto market. Yeah, I mean, instant gratification, Jesse, evidently is not fast enough for most people. And there's this get-rich gambling mentality on things like Dogecoin. And they have made people wealthy. They have indeed. But I find it interesting that in the end, we see the central banks buying gold hand over fist, and yet the impetus here with the public is into cryptocurrency. When you look at, you mentioned Trump going to the Bitcoin show in Tennessee. He did. And what I find also interesting about that is directly after he spoke was Senator Cynthia Loomis from Wyoming, whose proposal to fund that Bitcoin account was to revalue the gold held by the Federal Reserve on behalf of the Treasury to a level sufficient enough to use some of the proceeds to buy that Bitcoin. And so, here again, yeah, I think the Trump trade is very bullish for crypto. I think that it's becoming almost a segue into a digital world, a world that is a world filled with surveillance, a world filled with lack of privacy. People are becoming more and more and more accustomed to these digital forms of wealth. And ultimately, where does that lead to? It's almost like a stepping stone, if you will. It's just becoming more mainstream. Yet at the same time, you look at what every central bank on the planet has been accumulating, and it hasn't been cryptocurrencies. I'm sure there are some that have. It's been hard commodities like precious metals. So, you hope it doesn't end poorly. You hope it doesn't end badly. But indeed, yeah, you have a generation of people who have put their faith in these digital assets and largely have done well. But in the end, I don't know how this all plays out. For me, I don't discount Bitcoin. I think there is certainly, you can see that the powers that be are pushing us in that direction. And rather than fight it, I think, yeah, you could certainly make some money by being in these asset classes. But in the end, for me, you take some of that profit and you pull it off the table and you put it into gold, you put it into silver, because as much as the media, as much as the information, as much as the rhetoric is pointing in that direction, don't look so much upon what they say, but what they are doing. And the most well-informed and well-funded money on the planet, their choice has been gold over Bitcoin, whereas the public's choice has been Bitcoin over gold. In the end, I guess we'll see who wins this one and who's right and who's wrong. And it doesn't have to be an either or, but for me, yeah, it's certainly something that is difficult to ignore. I see it, but in the end, I feel more comfortable with physical assets in my possession. I mean, look at Bill Gates as an example, buying up all the farmland. I think it's tangibles in your possession, and I'm not throwing dirt on Bitcoin. I happen to think it's turning into something that is becoming far more viable than I ever thought it would be. I own a little bit of it. I accumulate a little bit of it. But in the end, it does not replace gold. And I think the central banks are showing you that.
In today's news recap, silver price continues to see buyers on dips. The silver market continues to see a lot of buying overall, as the trend continues to see a lot of pressures to the upside. At this point in time, the market looks as if it is trying to find its way higher yet again. The silver market found itself a bit noisy during the early hours on Monday as we pulled back towards the $30 level again, only to turn around and show signs of life. At this juncture, the market is hanging around between the 200-day EMA below and the 50-day EMA above. With that being said, I think we are in that sweet spot where you attract a lot of attention. The question, of course, is which direction do we go? In noisy patterns like this, it's best to pay close attention to the longer-term trend, as typically consolidation will lead to some type of continuation. Well, as traders, we have to come up with something, and I think a move above the $31.50 level gives me much more confidence in the silver market, as we will have just formed a so-called W pattern. If we turn around and break down below the lows of the last couple of days and then the 200-day EMA, you could see silver fall apart. Ultimately, we are in an uptrend. So understand that you are still looking for cheap silver to take advantage of, as the market has been so decidedly bullish for the entire year, really. If we do break out to the upside, I suspect we will eventually try to get to the 35 level above. If we can get above that level, then we're off to the races, as the market could very well see continued momentum building in this market. Now, we'll show you more clips, but first, check the pinned comment, especially if you're a stacker, as we have a massive Black Friday deal that every stacker should take advantage of. And hit the like and subscribe button so you do not miss out our recaps. Enjoy the episode.
Inherently is more surveyable, right? I mean, moving towards a cashless society is surveillance in and of itself. I do think that he's surrounding himself with people who will go back to embracing free speech and the First Amendment. I found the cancel culture and the censorship more distressing than anything over the last several years. And certainly it appears as though he will back away from that. And it's concerning to see these other countries, like you mentioned, the UK, Germany, and Australia, imposing these draconian style of rules that, you know, they're almost Black Mirror, they're dystopian. So at least I think in this country, they're saying the right things to move away from that. But here again, you know, it's silently pushing people into a digital world, into a tokenized world, into a world where everything from you know, your everything that we do now is digital. And if we cross that Rubicon, there are two things that I would really want to stay away from. One would be this digital ID that they will probably roll out in the name of election integrity. That's all the biometrics. And if you look at all of the patents Bill Gates has that mesh the digital ID with your health records, your financial records, he's got Visa, all of these. Nomi Prince did an amazing interview, or I guess you could say like an expose on it about a year ago, meshing the patents that Gates has with the digital ID and the future. And I think that we're moving in that direction quietly, and they'll keep it quiet by bringing back the ability to say what you want to say and no more censorship and that kind of stuff, while at the same time moving us towards this tokenized digital surveillance world. So on one hand, it's good. We're going to get our ability to say things again back, hopefully, and won't be censored and kicked off of platforms for having the nerve to say the name of a virus or the president's son's name. I mean, that's how we had to do things. You could never say what kind of virus it was, and you could never, ever say Hunter Biden. I mean, that was the worst thing you could do if you wanted to get your channel taken down or deplatformed. But on the other hand, I still believe that the agenda is to move us towards a digital world, a tokenized world, a world that will be surveilled. And that is where we're going. I mean, you know, you look at the CBDCs, whether or not we get it under this administration, if you take the world's GDP and the countries that comprise all of it, 99% of the countries that comprise the world's GDP have a CBDC in development or already operational. And I think the plan all along was to bring Lael Brainerd in, that she would have been the head of the Federal Reserve had Kamala won. She is a modern monetary theorist. She did develop the CBDC with MIT. She did run point for FedNow, which is Venmo and Zelle on steroids, backed by the Fed, and it didn't work. Well, Trump won, but does that mean that we are not going to move towards a CBDC? Does that mean we are not going to move towards a new system? Is there not going to be a reset that will then reset the entire system and then move towards something more digital? I don't know. I've always felt that ultimately was where we were going, that they would do all they could. And that's why I coined the phrase too stupid to be stupid. So many of the things that we've seen over the last few years literally are too stupid to be stupid. I was doing an interview with Tom Luongo yesterday, and he was saying basically this is a British and a Davos has-been psyop to, you know, literally destabilize the United States, bring it down, bankrupt it, and destroy it from within. And he has his reasons for.
What are your thoughts on Andy Schectman's interview? Do you agree with his predictions? Do you think the BRICS nations could challenge the US dollar and disrupt the American economy? Could gold really blow up in 2025? Drop your honest opinions in the comments and let the stacker community know if you're investing in miners or prefer sticking with physical metals. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out this video over here. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'll see you on the other side.